Welcome everybody to the first NLU webinar, Radical Innovation in a Post-Corona World. We're very happy to see that we are already more than 50 people online. 皆様、最初の NLU ウェビナーにようこそ。今日は英語で進行させていただきますが、丁寧にお話を進めていきたいと思っております。ポストコロナの世界におけるラジカルイノベーションがテーマでございます。So, we have a lot of interesting stuff prepared for you today. We do not pretend that we have all the answers to your questions, but I think we may have some new insights, some new ideas, some new inspiration, and maybe some new questions also. We're going to talk about radical innovation. And radical comes from the word root, from the roots, something fundamental, because that is what we need today. If you look at the word radical, going to the origin, essential, unconventional. So basically to come out of the post-corona, into the post-corona era, we need to revisit our roots. And we need innovation. What is it innovation means? It means into the new, to change, to renew. The etymology of it is into the new. So we will explore the meaning of innovation as well in these 75 minutes. And I would encourage you, since we have two presenters, Lucas Sanchez Martinez joining us from Bogota in Colombia, founder of Hermanos Brothers and Nellis Core team member, and myself, I would encourage you to put your Zoom screen on speaker view. In the upper right corner, you can either choose gallery view or speaker view. So if you choose speaker view, we'll always have the speaker in the large picture. 画面の右上でスピーカービュー、ギャラリービューがお選びいただけるようになっておりますが、ぜひスピーカービューを選んでいただき、話をしている、2人のプレゼンター今日おりますが、スピーカービューでご覧いただければと思います。So, from today's facilitators, without further ado, we are ready to start the show. Over to you, Lucas.
Thank you, Peter, and hello, everybody. So as Peter was just mentioning, today's purpose is mainly to describe in broad strokes what we think we should definitely highlight regarding the whole post-corona scenario that we're starting to build. And in order to set the framework for this first NLU webinar, we would like to introduce very briefly what NLU is all about. And before doing that, I just want to quickly let you know what we're going to be going through today. So in terms of tools, we'll be watching some short videos that we've chosen for today's session. There's going to be a presentation, visual presentation guiding our journey. We'll have some polling moments, basically asking you some questions, some breakout sessions at the end of our overall session. So there's also some interaction. It's not just Peter and I talking. We're having also Daniel from Colombia joining us. He'll be doing some graphic recording. So this is kind of the overflow of the session. And basically in terms of contents, as the title states it, we want to highlight why we really need to think about radical innovation in terms of the whole scenario we're getting into. And we will be exploring it basically in three levels. In terms of the economic system, the corporations and the very important role they play, and innovation itself. So without any further ado, and to frame this whole session, let us please introduce you very briefly what NLU is all about.
At a time of deeply rooted and critical survival challenges shared amongst all inhabitants of Earth, a global and locally based shift is taking place in policymaking, business, production processes, and consumption habits. Introducing NLU, Next Leaders University, a local to global sustainability learning platform designed, developed, and delivered by local sustainability practitioners and social innovators worldwide, crafted to inspire and empower corporate stakeholders and young social innovators in paving the way to strategically adapt for the new future we are called to co-create. A unique, diverse, and constantly expanding network of on-the-ground young leaders and doers. A sagittal platform offering relevant micro-trainings, monthly webinars, and customized courses adapted to understand specific local challenges within the greater global transition of our times. Build connections, get inspired, feel empowered. Join NLU.
Thank you, Peter. So one of the first questions we ask ourselves is, what is the impact of COVID-19 right now? Is it actually a negative impact, the one it's having beyond health and beyond what we already know? Next, thank you, Peter.
Okay, I will take over here and I will present two very new reports. One, I think, was launched in March this year, called the Asia and the Pacific SDG Progress Report 2020. On the right side of this slide, you see the 17 SDGs. And to the left of that, you see progress made so far. The black line that says 2019 is where we should be today if we are to reach the targets for 2030. So you can see on all 17 goals, we are lagging behind. All 17 goals are behind target, and particularly 9 to 15. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 are seriously behind. And if you look at 12, responsible consumption and production, and 13, climate action, they are going in the wrong direction. This is for Asia. So even before COVID-19, there was a lot of work to do. Just last month, in May, the United Nations released their progress report for 2020, and it includes the perspective of COVID-19 also. The bottom left of this slide, it says, this crisis, COVID-19, is imperiling progress towards the SDGs, but it also makes their achievement all the more urgent and necessary. There are many negative data in this report, I'm afraid to say, but if we look on the right side, a very big goal of the SDGs is no poverty, goal number 1. But what is happening this year is we see the first increase in poverty globally in 20 years. Number 4, quality education was a goal where much progress had been made, but right now, under COVID-19, 1.6 billion students, that 90% of all students in the world are directly affected by COVID-19. And number 8, decent work and economic growth. COVID-19 hits informal workers in the economy hardest, and amazingly, 61% of all workers today are informal workers. We see increased inequality, and if you go to 16, we see social unrest because of this inequality happening in the world. And finally, number 13, climate action. Well, the greenhouse gases may drop around 6% this year globally, but this is actually what we would need to achieve anyway, every year, to stay below plus 1.5 degrees after the Industrial Revolution. So it is very, very small decrease in greenhouse gas emissions also. Amazingly well, could be expected perhaps. The level of CO2 in the atmosphere is still rising sharply, despite all the airplanes being on the ground. We now have 417 ppm, parts per million, of CO2 in the atmosphere, significantly higher than last year. We're also seeing fossil fuel industries. We're seeing polluter industries, tar sands and other highly polluting industries, asking now for special protection because of COVID-19. So they're trying to be bailed out. They're trying to be protected. They're not trying to change course.
Thank you, Peter. And apart from this clearly negative effect that is having, and in my case, I can clearly see it in Colombia, as different mining companies are trying to have lighter environmental laws, arguing that they need to reboost the economy. We also wonder if there's another side, if there's also an opportunity opening up as a consequence of the COVID-19. Next, please. And the guys from the World Economic Forum, and now I quote Professor Klaus Schwab, he says, "The pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world." So for the meantime, I would like you to keep in mind the following questions. What does reset our world could mean today? What kind of innovation do we need in this allegedly resetting of our world? And what can you and your organization could do in this kind of reset? Please keep those questions for the meantime. We'll go back to them afterwards. Peter? So this is a version of the Great Reset, according to the World Economic Forum.
Just want to see if I'm showing the sound. 1 second. Yes, I am. It's good. ごめんなさい。音も、I just want to make absolutely sure. 音もちゃんと共有してるかどうかごめんなさい。確認をさせていただきましたが大丈夫ですね。はい、sorry, we'll go again. Lucas.
So we do believe that although of course there are very important negative effects taking place, this might also be a moment in history where there is a systemic awareness taking place, and somehow we are acknowledging our interdependence, perhaps a rough way, but we have really clear examples of how this is happening. So for instance, you can see as the BBC News, they talk about how the coronavirus recovery plan must tackle climate change, and how there are some initiatives taking place, for instance, in the UK, where they're really trying to organize a green economic recovery after the acute phase of the pandemic is over, and trying to forge an international agreement on ambitious carbon cuts despite the postponed COP26. Peter? We can also see how the European Union is actually undergoing a green recovery package a green recovery package, and is really creating a very relevant marker for the rest of the world, as they are trying to show how we need to rebuild the coronavirus ravaged economies in a way in which we are also able to tackle the climate emergency we've been facing and we haven't been attending to. Next. We can also see how in the UK, once again, also from the, not only from the government sector, but also from a large series of organizations, there's a zero carbon route trying to be traced for the post-pandemic scenario, and how they are really urging a green recovery in spite of the COP26 summit in November being postponed. Next, please. And you can see how from different sectors, once again, we've talked about the European Union, now we talk about the UN Environment Chief, and how they are talking about an SOS signal for the human enterprise, how they talk about how climate change is a pandemic in slow motion that perhaps we haven't really been able to realize in its full shape, and how nowadays we have a huge opportunity in our hands. Next, please. And here the UN chief saying how the current economic thinking does not recognize that human wealth depends on nature's health, and that the language of economics as we've been understanding it so far recently has clearly been failing us, and that our economies, livelihoods, and well-being all rely on nature, from the food we eat to controlling our climate, regulating disease, and providing spiritual fulfillment. And these kind of calls are coming from different sectors, and that's showing us the opportunity laying ahead. Peter, back to you.
Yes, so Lucas touched on different positive aspects. This is a bit like a recap of those potential positive aspects. Actually, just a few weeks ago, May 27th, the EU launched its COVID-19 recovery plan. And if you look at the text to the left, it says, the European Green Deal and digitalization will boost jobs and growth, the resilience of our societies, and the health of our environment. So the Green Deal is a part of the COVID-19 recovery plan. Also, business in Europe, through the Science-Based Targets platform, SBT platform, actually 155 CEOs of global corporations last month called for a net zero recovery. That is in CO2. We need a net zero recovery. Interesting to see what happens with investment. What do you think will happen with investment? So-called ESG investment. Investment focused also on environment, social, and governance factors. Well, you might think that the money would disappear, but the opposite has happened. More money, according to Financial Times, is flowing into ESG funds than ever before. And it says at the bottom, many investors see parallels between the climate crisis and the COVID-19 crisis. The climate crisis is a pandemic in slow motion. And finally, something really interesting is happening in cities around the world. They're being redesigned for new forms of mobility. There are pop-up bicycle lanes across the world. Cities like Athens or Paris are doing major restructuring of the cityscape to allow for bicycling, for walking, and for fewer cars. So maybe we will have more livable cities because of COVID-19. So now we've been talking for a while. So now we think it's time to involve you in a poll. We have 6 questions ready, and I will see if I can start them, and then you can join and also tell your opinion as to where you think we are. ここは少し日本語も、説問の日本語も入れさせていただきます。How has COVID-19 affected your life? You can choose 2. I feel worried, got rather depressed. うつな状態になったということですね。It made me rethink life, work, and future. 自分の人生、仕事、未来を考え直すきっかけ。I have enjoyed teleworking, そのままですね。I just want to get back to the office. 早く会社に戻りたい。I'm happy that nature is getting a break. 自然が少し休息できていることが嬉しい。I'm worried about the future of the earth. 地球の未来が心配だ。 You can choose 2 out of these. We now have 75 people participating. That's great. And about 75 people, yes. And 41 of you have voted now. Right now, number 2, it made me rethink life, work in the future is leading. And I've enjoyed teleworking is number 2. So let's see what happens here. We have more people. I'm sorry if some people are accessing from the internet and not from the Zoom app. You may not be able to vote. I'm sorry about that. Okay, we have 60 people now. Any more who wants to vote? 63. Okay, I think I'm going to share the results here. There we go. So the winner was number 2. It made me rethink life, work, and the future. 75%. That's amazing. 75%が2番ですね. And I've enjoyed teleworking 52%. Yes, me too. Actually, I enjoy not traveling the trains in Tokyo. So that's also a nice thing. And then
30% is worried about the future.
Yeah, so we have a positive audience. I'm happy that nature is getting a break. Is number 3. Interesting. ありがとうございます. We will go to number 2. Let's see if I can find the second question. Yes. So, what will COVID-19 do to your business and your workplace? 一つだけ選んでください。仕事、会社にどういう影響を与えるか。We are now better prepared for challenges of the future. 未来の挑戦によりよく準備ができている。Nothing much. We will go back to normal soon. 何も変わらないだろうと。Third one, the future looks difficult and work is uncertain. 不透明な未来だろう。And the fourth one, we will learn from COVID-19 and innovate for sustainability. 学んでサステナビリティイノベーションを起こすという、ごめんなさい。ここはその4択ですが、この4択の中から1つ、you can choose one of the 4. What will happen to your business and your workplace? よりよく準備ができている。何も変わらないだろう。未来は不透明。我々は学んでサステナビリティイノベーションを加速すると。どれでしょうか。Okay, at the moment we have about half of you have voted. We have the last one. We will learn from COVID-19 and innovate for sustainability is leading. And second is the future looks difficult and work is uncertain. At 26% is number 2. A few more people voting, perhaps 4 or 5 more people. Okay. We have 60 of you voting. That's good. Let's see what the results are. So for this one, the 4th. Okay, very positive again. We will learn from COVID-19 and innovate for sustainability. ちゃんと教訓を得て sustainable innovation を加速する. And the third one, future looks difficult and work is uncertain. And number 1, we are now better prepared. They are more or less equal. Interesting. Very good. Then we'll go to number 3. Okay, if you look at the whole Earth that we're living in, will COVID-19 make it more likely that we respond on a global scale to systemic challenge such as the current environmental crisis? 地球全体として構造的な環境の危機に COVID-19 によってより対応できるようになるか? If you think yes, absolutely, you choose 10. If you think not at all, you choose 1. You can scroll down on your screen, right? So choose on a scale from 1 to 10. 10から1のスケールで、またごめんなさい、私が立ち上げないといけないですね。10から1のスケールで、この COVID-19 により構造的な問題に対応、ものすごくできるようになったと考える場合は10、全くむしろ後退していると考える場合は1。So where do you think we are in terms of our ability to respond on a global scale to the systemic challenges we're facing? You can scroll down and go. Oops. Okay, we have 7 and 6 leading at the moment, which is not too bad. We have 15% also voting 8. So you think we are getting better at responding to the systemic challenges. Interesting. A few more people voting. Can we have maybe 2 or 3 more people so we reach 60? Okay, here we go. The result is between 6 and 8, so it's above average. It's a pretty good result. You think we will be able to meet the structural challenges? Okay, that is the result here. Main score is 7, 31%. So, a few more questions left. We will move then to leadership and culture in your own organization. Think of leadership and culture in your own organization. Are the leaders well prepared for the challenges we will face in the 2020s and 2030s? Will they really help meet the SDGs? Of course, 10. And 0, no chance, they haven't a clue. 全くわからない。ちんぷんかんぷんが0。ものすごくリーダーシップ、我が社のカルチャーはその方向に向かうというのは、一番高いのは10と。Let's see, you can scroll down and vote also in the lower, yes, brackets, okay. Not 0, you have only 1. The lowest is 1, I'm sorry. 1が一番下ですね。Right now we have 8 leading, actually. 8 is leading with 20%. 19%, we have 6 at 19%. Okay. We'll take just a few more people and then share the results. Okay. So we have 6, 7, and 8 scoring pretty highly, actually. So you score 50% above 6, so maybe a good result, I'd say. You are confident about your organizations. 2 more questions for you. The next one is kind of a big question. Let me just make sure I share it properly. What new perspectives have been opened or reaffirmed for you individually as a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic? 個人として、どういう新しい見方を得ることができたか。And you can choose 2. ちょっと複雑になってますが、humans and nature are truly independent and far from being separate beings. 自然と人間は一体だということ。Economy needs to be reformulated considering the global interconnection that now characterizes it. 経済は再構築しなきゃいけない。やっぱりグローバルなつながりを意識する必要がある。COVID-19 is giving us several tips to understand wholeness and how we are all part of an integrated ecosystem. 我々はこのエコシステムが一つであるという、その全体性、ホールネスを認識できるようになった。We currently need to reboost our economy and create employment, no matter what the environmental side effects. とにかく雇用だと、環境を今考えている場合ではない。この4番目です。Fifth one, the current crisis shows that we need to build more localized economies, diversify suppliers, and prioritize local sources and processes. 現在の危機はやはりローカリゼーション、それからサプライチェーンの多様化、ローカルソーシングとプロセスが重要であることを示しています。The final one, the current crisis shows that we need to prioritize the reconstruction of a strong economic system and that the so-called green transition must now wait longer. やっぱり、強い経済を取り戻して、いわゆるグリーントランジション、環境への移行というのはちょっと待ってもらうしかないねという。You can choose 2, so it's maybe the most complicated question of the day, but it's interesting. Let us see what you say. We right now have the third one leading. COVID-19 is giving us several tips to understand wholeness and how we are all part of an integrated ecosystem. And just a few more people and I will share the results. Okay, so we have number 3, COVID-19 is giving us several tips to understand wholeness and how we are all part of an integrated ecosystem. Gets 55%. And then we have some close number 2s. Economy needs to be reformulated considering the global interconnections that characterizes it. And the third one, the current crisis shows that we need to localize, diversify, prioritize local sources. Okay, and then the final question for you today is personal again. We want to finish with a personal question and move on in our presentation. So let me just make sure I share this one. Yes. Has COVID-19 personally inspired you to become more innovative regarding sustainability in your everyday life? 自分の、日常生活の中で何か、環境とか社会とか意識して行動するように、よりなったかどうか。You can rate your own life between 10 and 1. interesting. We have no one answering 1 or 2. So we are learning something. We are changing our private lives also to a certain extent. Okay. I think we are now almost there. Yes, let's see the final result. So 7 and 8 are getting the highest scores. So that's very interesting. We are also reflecting on our own personal lives, which is interesting. We have none at 1, and yeah, so it's lying in the higher end actually of the scores. Okay, so what do you think, Lucas?
I think we definitely have a positive audience, apparently.
Okay.
And yeah, I think like this small space for reflecting a little bit will open the space for the coming section of our webinar.
Okay.
I would like you to ask yourselves, what can the role of companies be right now? And in order to start this reflection, we want to introduce it with the following excerpt of a documentary that we will be launching this month within the Nelly's framework. This is just an excerpt that we think we could open the conversation.
これはネリスが、Hermanos Brothers と一緒に作ったドキュメンタリーの抜粋です。3分程度、特に企業の役割についての。
I've been studying the relationship between people and companies for a while. And I think that when we started building companies and looking for profit mainly, I think that's the moment that we got disconnected from nature, because you're just looking for how can we have more and more profits out of the companies that we have, and we started serving the economy instead of having the economy serving us.
The logic of capital is exponential growth, is the accumulation, perpetual accumulation of private financial profit at the cost of everything else. And the logic of nature is almost the opposite. It's the understanding of impermanence and the interconnection, interdependence of all life forms. So behind so much wars and conflicts and sufferings in the world, it seems to be these two logic that's fighting against each other. From the drought and the forest fire in California, to the air pollution in China, to the nuclear meltdown in Japan, behind the scene is all these two forces grinding against each other. So my question was, can we create harmony between nature and capital? And can we go inside the system of capitalism, to change it from within?
Children are in slavery as domestic workers, or they're used as forced labor in the supply chains of clothing, jewelry, agricultural products, and in cotton, cocoa, and fisheries. For a long time, I felt that trade was something that happened apart from me. I was a consumer, I bought something, but I had no relationship with the farmer that grew it or the person that made it. How many of you in 20 years' time will think, actually, yes, you were a part of the modern slavery that we have in our economic system today?
More and more, after working with companies for some years, it's becoming evident this state of crisis that companies are facing, that's rooted in the way in which humanity is undermined.
Las grandes empresas, que son los que nuestros principales clientes, muchas veces quieren cambiar. Se dan cuenta de que están generando impactos negativos y que tienen que hacer algo. Pero son empresas que son muy pesadas de estructura. No es tan fácil llegar y cambiar una empresa. Entonces, una buena forma de empezar tal vez a cambiar un poquito el rumbo es empezar a aprender de nuevo emprendimiento, empezar a aprender también de lo creativo que es el sector civil, y a partir de eso generar también alianza y colaboración entre esa empresa privada y ese nuevo emprendimiento. Esa es una muy buena forma para empezar a innovar.
Regardless of whether you're in health or in agriculture or in finance or whatever, you cannot make a decision without considering social and environmental aspects. It's just so natural to you. So those are the leaders that we want to have thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of, in my view, but that's just one view.
Over to you, Peter.
Yes. So now we will talk about the 3 radical challenges. In this video, we also talked about there was some talk about capitalism, our economic system. So what is it we're trying to achieve? The radical innovation that we need in the economic system as a whole. We need, on the right here, this is very important, we need an economic system that works for 10 billion people in 2050, meeting their basic and their social needs. And it must be within the limits of one planet Earth. And further, without destroying the opportunities of future generations or killing off other forms of life. This is the task for the radical innovation of our economic system. Question now is there any model out there that works? And we're going to introduce to you what we think is the best overall model that exists right now. It's sort of conceived of by a UK economist called Kate Raworth. You may have heard of it. And it's called Donut Economics. And you will see in a 1.5-minute video why she calls it the donut economy. It has Japanese subtext. 日本語の字幕が次のビデオについております。ドーナツ経済のモデルです。We think this may be one of the best models for exploring the radical innovation of the whole system. So 1.5 minutes, please.
In the 20th century, economics lost its purpose and started chasing the false goal of GDP growth. In recent decades, that has pushed many societies into deepening inequality, and it's pushing us all towards ecological collapse. This century calls for a new goal, meeting the needs of all within the means of the planet. In other words, it's time to get into the donut, the sweet spot for humanity. But that's no easy task. Today, billions of people still fall short of their daily needs, from food, housing and energy to healthcare and education. And yet collectively, we've already overshot our pressure on some of Earth's most critical life support systems, driving climate change and the breakdown of biodiversity. What we do to this Earth in the next 50 years will shape the next 10,000. So let's replace that last century goal of endless growth with the goal of thriving in balance. And if we're to have half a chance of getting there, what economic mindset would be fit for the task?
Yes. See if I can go further. No, just want to go down. Yes. So this is a donut economy model. There's actually also a book in Japanese, Donuts Keizai. 日本語でも書籍は出ております。In the center, you have the social foundation. Outside, you have the ecological ceiling. There are 12 social foundations, 9 aspects of the ecological ceiling, and must all fit together in one. The aspects of the ecological ceiling actually comes from the chart on the right, but the idea of planetary boundaries by the Stockholm Resilience Institute. So for those who are more interested in that, you can dive into it here. But we want to show you that this is not just theory. It is not just an economic model. There are places actually using this model right now. And we will show you the most exciting example in the world. So I think that's over to you, Lucas.
Thank you, Peter. So yeah, in fact, the most interesting fact about the donut economy, which is not something else but a way of representing the principles of circular economy, it is that it is actually taking place. So the city of Amsterdam actually hired this woman, the one that's this UK economist behind the donut economy concept, and they just developed a full strategy for the recuperation of Amsterdam in a post-COVID context. Next, Peter, please.
Want to just play that?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you. basically, just to recap, the inside of the donut represents the lower limit of prosperity needed for a socially equitable existence. And this, of course, involves a series of elements such as income and work, as well as good health, social networks, and political participation, for instance. Whilst the outside of the donut represents the ecological limits of the planet, which we must respect. Some examples of these are, of course, climate change, nitrogen saturation, and a decline in biodiversity. So this is a very concrete example of something that's taking place right now, and is a way of addressing the economic recovery needed pretty much worldwide in a way in which is fully aligned with another form of understanding the kind of economics we need. Another good example of it, Peter, please, is how Finland, next one, applying the circular economy principles, which basically, without getting into much detail here, is a way of understanding our economic system, not in a linear way in which we take, we make, and we dispose, but actually we create a cycle where in the end, once we make and we use, we return. And there is constantly a cycle taking place. And a very good example of this, please, Peter, is what the Scandinavian country is currently doing. They held, in fact, a World Circular Economy Forum last year. And now, if you can please change the slide, they are actually working based on a roadmap they created. And it's called the Finland's Roadmap to a Circular Economy. And basically, what they are doing is creating a circular bioeconomy, basically as a tool to achieve sustainable development, combating climate change. They're also saving natural resources, improving the state of the environment, all while generating economic growth and jobs. So this is a crucial element of this whole series of approaches, because it's not in detriment of the economic well-being, but understanding it in a more holistic perspective and applying these principles on a practical level. So this is just for you to get a glimpse of what's actually happening, and we're not just talking about, theory and nice ideas.
Okay, so the donut economy model and circular economics as the overall system. The next thing is, most of the people here work in a company, a corporation. So for your company, what is the radical challenge of innovation? And this is spelled very easily on the right. It's very difficult to do. But we must design companies that are restorative and regenerative, and life enhancing, every day, everywhere. This is a design challenge for companies. Restorative, regenerative, life enhancing, every day, everywhere. Do such companies at all exist today? We're going to look at some companies trying to do some things. I don't think anyone is actually there yet, but we will give you a couple of good examples of what is happening in the corporate world also.
This is one of the most important elements of our webinar, because we're actually not just talking about what can happen, but what is actually happening. And as Peter said, of course, there might be still a lot of limitations and perhaps kind of incomplete work done, but there are definitely very clear examples. We just want to highlight quickly some of them. In the financial sector, the French huge bank BNP Paribas, they're actually starting to work in a very deliberate way in terms of defining a very specific time frame for a complete coal exit. In fact, they're already rejecting some clients that are not committed to some of these activities, and they are not just, posting nice sustainability information on their website, but actually starting to do stuff and changing the way they understand financing. Next one, please. So in this case, this is just an example of how sustainable finance is being undertaken in the case of BNP. If you could show the next one, please, Peter.
Okay.
Where in fact, they are relating and highlighting the strong bond between the COVID-19 pandemic and how this is also an impulse for refocusing sustainable finance and including social SDGs within all their actions. a broader focus of sustainable finance is needed to foster sustainable business models. And they're clearly stating that their commitment is aligned with a stronger focus on local, close sourcing, and circular economy. And this comes from the finance sector that sometimes we kind of, you know, in a black or white world, associate with what needs to be changed. And changes are also coming from within some of the most clear representatives of the economic system we have. Another good example, and I'm going to go quickly through this one, the newspaper and media group in the UK, The Guardian, they've clearly stated that they are committed with the green transitioning. And this has been manifested in different ways, from their commitment to actually have a carbon zero model for 2030, to actually start changing, for instance, some of the words and the concepts they use in with the clear idea of informing in a more accurate way all the environmental crisis that we are facing. So if you can move to the next one. They clearly stated they have, in fact, an environmental pledge that's 2019, and they are clearly committing to not only informing, but being coherent with what they are aiming to do and changing internal policies as they acknowledge their very important responsibility of informing. So some of their principles, they will continue what they've called the long-standing record of powerful environmental reporting. They have changed, in fact, the wording, and they talk not of just environmental change, but they highlight how this is an environmental collapse and a crisis. Next one, please.
1 second. Yes. I think we can skip that one, maybe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you want to?
Okay. And for instance, they've committed to zero emissions by 2030, while no longer accepting advertising from fossil fuel extractive companies. And these are only a couple of examples. Back to you, Peter.
Yes, so what we're saying here, we need to imagine, we need to reimagine what a company can do. And we need to spend the rest of today, short time, to imagine the company of the future. And there are some companies that 25 years ago started the journey. Interface, carpet company in the US. I used to know the founder who died in 2011. And they set a mission called Mission Zero in 1994. But they actually, the year to achieve it was this year, 2020. So they moved on and now have what they call a climate take-back strategy. They also want to create factories that are like forests. Morinoyona Kojo. This is a manufacturer of carpets, but they are trying to make factories as forests. Let's see a short video about Interface's climate take-back program. And I repeat, this is a carpet company in the United States. This, see if I can go beyond this one, sorry. Okay. We want to see a little bit more about this. There's a little bit about the impact that Interface has had on the world. Another 30 seconds or so.
I think Interface may well underestimate the degree to which it has already influenced the wider world.
Let's get creative and think of what we can do with carbon in our operations, in our products, and actually lower the amount of carbon in the atmosphere while we're doing that.
The fact that it's the smart thing is fantastic. The fact that it's the right thing is essential.
You want to be great? You want to progress? Dive in, man. This is the future.
Yes. So maybe I need to just escape again here, sorry. So, back to me. Okay, I was already taking that, Lucas, sorry about that.
Go ahead, no worries.
I have worked with Interface, I have worked with the founder. And I challenge all you here. I don't know how many companies we have today, but I challenge all of you to become interface. If all your companies do not become interface, there is no future. So the challenge for all of us is to at least achieve the level of interface. And this will be the final section of our sort of discussions today. Company of the future. What does it mean? What does it mean to be a truly sustainable company? There are 4 different layers or 4 different dimensions I'm raising here. I call the first one, and I put Japanese here as well also for you. First one I call aspirational dimension. There's 1. Then there's a relational dimension, also 1. There's a product and service dimension. And then there are 4 operational dimensions. And you basically must live up to all these to become a truly sustainable company. So I turned those 4 dimensions into 7 rules for company of the future. So test your company against those 7 rules. First one, aspiration. We will always aim to generate whole earth, all life, intergenerational profits. Whole earth means you cannot just think of your own region. All life means not just humans, other forms of life. Intergenerational means not just now. You must generate profits that also enable future life. That is the aspiration, must be the aspiration of company of the future. Next, relations. We will relate to our people, partners, and communities with respect and care all over the place, no matter where you are, no matter what kind of business you're in. This should be straightforward, but it's not. Third one, products and services. We will innovate to create products and services that maintain or restore the social and ecological or natural fabric. This means the products you put out must either at least maintain or they must help restore society and nature. And then finally, operations, there are 4 aspects. The first one is at least carbon neutrality, at least. Aim to be carbon negative when you can. We will work to use all resources in circular systems. Circularity is the second principle. There can be a natural cycle and a technical cycle, but must be circularity. Third, there must be water neutrality. And fourth, there must be net zero forestation. Zero net deforestation, meaning you cannot have operations that help decrease the forest cover on the earth. So here you have 7 rules, and you want to test your company if you want to be a company of the future. And that is what Interface tried to do. So we created a scoring sheet, this I'll come back to later on, where you can try to assess where your company is today against the 7 rules. And I wrote mindset, actions, and results. Score each of them between 0 and 10. Mindset, are we aware? Do we understand? Actions, are we actually doing something? And third, results, are what we are doing enough? Are we creating the results that we need? We need to score against these 3 aspects. So to do this, we looked at the economic system, we looked at the corporation, and the final thing is we will look at this thing called innovation. And the radical challenge for innovation is that we need to redefine innovation. It must be innovation that includes only those new creations of value that also maintain or increase social and ecological value, and again, in a whole earth, all life, intergenerational perspective. So the question for us and for you in a company, can we innovate innovation? Can we change the way we think about innovation? So look at redefining how we innovate. Look at a group of experts in the US, 15 great experts on innovation. They deliberated for hours and hours, and they came out with a definition. And this is it. What is innovation? Executing an idea which addresses a specific challenge and achieves value for both the company and customer. Well, what do you think? Exciting? Pretty boring, I would say. Let's take another one. Also innovation experts in the US. Yes, you have creativity, invention, innovation, turning a new concept into commercial success and widespread use. Again, come on, how boring can you be? Let's look at innovation for the future. What if your business or your commercial success or the value they create, what if it destroys social and ecological value over here? Can you then call it value? You create financial value, but you destroy ecological and social value. If that is not true, then innovation is not innovation. Perhaps it is either an illusion or maybe rather destruction. So We're now moving towards the final part. We want to engage a little bit also towards the end, but we need to, in our companies, to start by reconsidering value. What are we trying to create through our economy, our business, or innovation? There's 3 layers here: physical survival, food, water, resources, energy. We need revolutions here. There's livability in society, shelter, clothing, education, etc. And then there's thrivability, which is mainly of the spirit, peace, love, self-esteem, self-actualization, happiness. Does capitalism, does our present economic system at all respond to these 5 to the right side? So we need to ask ourselves, and in our companies, we need to realize all financial value, your sales, your profits, your brand value, they are all only derivatives of these 3 fundamental layers of value. If you don't have these 3 layers of value in a healthy situation, you cannot have healthy financial value in the long term. So we need to realize that first of all. So this is a recap. Within the new economic system, a company of the future, innovation is something that maintains or increases social and ecological value in a whole earth, all life, intergenerational perspective. If it does not, it cannot be called innovation. I know every company talks about innovation, but if you create value here and destroy value here, it's plus minus 0, or maybe it is negative in the end. So we created a worksheet, which I will come back to in the end, where you can actually assess your company against whether you are a company of the future or not. But before we do that, we want to do a little short breakout to have some interaction between you. And I think I will hand over to you here again, Lucas, to talk about the 10-minute breakout session we're going to do.
Yes, so far we've briefly mentioned just a couple of concepts that are actually being applied. We talked about donut economy, we talked about circular economy. We could carry on talking about real life approaches that are actually being the lights of different processes. We could talk about regenerative capitalism. We could talk about the whole B Corps or triple impact movement that also ends up being greenwashing in some occasions once it is institutionalized. We can talk about relocalized economies, and right now, more than giving you more concepts perhaps you are already familiar with some of them, perhaps others are new. We would like to ask you the following. It is clear that we need to bring economy back to life, but to what kind of life do we actually want to bring it back? How could the post-corona economy look like? And before we get into the breakout session, we want to show you a last short clip that actually talks about this relationship between post-corona scenario and tackling climate change.
It's a moment to step back and really rethink. And we set up a new world order after World War II. We're now in a different world than we were then. There is an opportunity to put those funds straight into jobs that will accelerate the pace of the decarbonization. So we actually just had a report from the International Renewable Energy Agency about the trillions, literally, that are there that are possible in investing in renewable energy, which is cheaper in most places than fossil fuels, specifically in the electricity sector, but also moving into the transportation sector. So we have a chance to both put people back to work and to chart a different future in a short time frame.
I think we should stop here, Lucas, in the interest of time, and go on to the breakout session question.
So basically, we're taking 8 minutes right now. We're going to have some breakout groups. And we basically want you to discuss the following. How could you personally commit to promote radical innovation, whatever you are understanding by it right now, within your company or organization. So please, let's take a short moment, and Peter, you will create the discussion groups.
Yes. There are four people in each group, so please say hello and discuss this question. How could you personally promote radical innovation around the things we talked about in your company? You get 8 minutes and you will automatically go back to, you will automatically go into the rooms and automatically come back to the main screen also. Okay, so let's see if it works. Okay. So I know it was very short time. Let me see if you're all back. Still people coming back. Just give them a few seconds more. Lucas, are you also there?
Yes, I'm here.
Very good. Okay. Okay, it was very short time. I'm sorry. Just time to maybe say hello a little bit. And we're now moving towards the end of the presentation, and we want to try to finish on time. So we will go into the last part and present the takeaways, things you can take with you home also after this webinar. First of all, we created a worksheet with 3 different sheets, and you can use it to explore deep innovation for sustainability in whatever organization or company you're in. It has one sheet with the vision, of company of the future, your dream for what your company organization should be like, and then the present challenges you're facing is basically the first sheet. Second one is the scoring sheet I showed you earlier. And the third one is 5 boxes you can innovate against in your company: culture and management practices, products and services, processes, branding, marketing and sales, and external relations and partnerships. Because we believe you can innovate in any of those 5 boxes, not just products, not just services. Innovation for sustainability can happen in any of those 5 boxes. So you will have a chance to use this worksheet also. We will provide it to you. We also included some resources you may choose to explore. It is in the presentation. I shall share later how you can get this, but we encourage you to explore donut economics, the planetary boundaries, the circular economy, and also the issue of regenerative capitalism as key concepts for the future. So, as I hand over to you, Lucas, I should, a little, 1 minute about NLU, and then we go to the last slide.
Yeah, lastly, just to remind you, and for you, those of you who are not familiar yet, we invite you to go to the NLU platform. This is nluglobal.com, where you can find micro trainings, regular webinars as the one you are presencing right now, and customized content for your organization. So please check it out. Feel free to share your feedback with us. And lastly, Peter?
Yes, the worksheet I just showed you with the assessment scoring tool, we will share. We will share the slides, and we have one of Lucas's friends doing graphic recording of this very session. So we'll see what comes out of that, and we will also definitely be sharing this. And we are planning some kind of follow-up for those of you who want to be part of that in July. So if you want, go ahead, Lucas.
Yeah, just to tell you to please do leave your emails in the chat if you want to receive all these takeaways later on. So please don't forget to leave them there before you finish the session. And lastly, we have a very short video we would like to share with you. Is that right, Peter?
Yes. Can I say one more thing? For those who are part of the 4Revs innovation ecosystem, 4Revsにご参加の皆さん, all the material will be uploaded also to the 4Revs platform. The 4Revs の IT プラットフォームにもアップロードいたします。But if you want to be part of the follow-up, you must leave your email in the chat. もしもフォローアップ我々はちょっと検討してますが、そこに関わりたい場合はチャットを開いていただいて、ご自分の電子メール、Eメールのアドレスを残していただいて、ご退席ください。So we will now, let's see, there's a chat message. Okay, we are starting, that's good. We will now close with a 3-minute clip from Jane Goodall, actually released just last Friday, which was World Environment Day. 先週金曜日が世界環境デー。ジェーン・グドル、ゴリラの研究で有名なジェーン・グドルが作った3分半のビデオ。どうしてもご退席される方はご退席なさって結構です。これぜひでも最後に見ていただいて終わりにしたいと思います。If you have to leave now, that's perfectly okay. But we have a very inspiring last 3.5 minutes to share with you. And then we will say goodbye. We're not going to do anything after that. So goodbye from me and Lucas, and hope to be in touch again and work together on this journey. So here we go with 3.5 minutes from Jane.
Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much for being here.
Today we have something a little different. Dr. Jane Goodall is going to tell you a story. Stay tuned after the animation to learn how to download this as a free children's book. Ready? Let's begin.
It starts as a whisper, a word on the air. It can't quite be heard, but you know that it's there. As gentle as sunlight, as tenacious as hail, in its route to the heart, it could not but prevail. And the people looked up from their day-to-day tasks, their day-to-day jobs, and their day-to-day masks. They heard, or they felt, where the whisper could lead, and they looked with eyes wide at what that might mean. And once they could see it, they hadn't a chance to resist the sweet song of of the deep spell it cast. But the feeling it brought them at first glance was pain, as they lifted their eyes on the land they had claimed, since they saw at last, as if raised from a dream, they were almost alone on the land and the sea. But the trees had almost gone, and the bees had almost gone, and the creatures in their shells by the seas had almost gone, and the people felt sad as they saw their new earth, but they knew this was it, one wild chance for rebirth. Breaking new ground, seeds rolling down, smell of the earth on your hands and your brow. No time for sorrow, we're building tomorrow. The sound of things growing now keeps us around. As the wildness grows and the deep wood grows and the sense that the future's come to meet you grows, there's no chance we can rest. We must do our best. This moment can lead us back home. That's our test. It starts as a whisper, a word on the air. It can't quite be heard, but you know that it's there. It then spoke like thunder until we all moved, and we could, and we did, and it's done. She's renewed.
Help turn the whisper into a roar by sharing this poem today. You can download